And welcome back, Bears fans, to another edition of the Bears Brothers podcast. It's been a while, but finally, the time has come for another game preview episode as the Bears are about to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a big Week 10 matchup. It's a game it's a big game to say the least, because if the Chicago Bears want to turn the script and make a run, this is a must-win. And you know what? It's a game that's totally within their reach. And just looking at this week's slate, it could not being just a big week for the Bears, but a huge week. Minnesota is going up against the 4-3-1 Redskins, who are coming off a bye. They've had plenty of time to prepare for the Vikings, who have lost 3 straight. Then you got Green Bay, who is also up for a test this week going up against the Titans. The Packers, they kind of seem a little bit bleak, and this game is not a given for them either. Detroit's on a bye, so the Lions are going to remain 5-4. So let's think about this. Say both Green Bay and Minnesota lose, coupled with a Chicago win. The NFC North would have the Lions leading at 5-4. Minnesota right behind them at 5-4 because the Lions would have the edge with the 1 win on them. The Packers would be third at 4-6, and the Bears would be right behind them at 3-6. And even if Green Bay wins, they too will be at 5-4. Either way, it's going to look like, the Bears are going to be only 2 games back out of first place with 7 games to go, and with victories against the Lions and the Vikings. If it happens this week, if that happens, the race is on. But that's all for naught if the Bears don't come away with a victory on Sunday, and they were going to have to earn this victory against the Bucs. I'm your host, Will DeWitt, and tonight I am joined, like I always am, by my 2 fellow Bears brothers, Brandon Hazlett and Nicholas Morano, to break down this upcoming game. Brothers, how are you doing tonight?
Doing very well. I don't have class tomorrow, so I essentially have a 3-day weekend.
Nice.
I'm doing okay, Will. I just took a test. It did not go in my favor, but I'm good. We're talking Bears football, so that makes it all better.
Excellent. Sorry to hear about that test, but hopefully this show goes much better than that test went for you.
It will.
All right, guys, let's get the show on the road. Who are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And let's start, like we always do for game previews, with my quick snapshot. They're 3-5 on the year, 3rd in the NFC South, and are coming off a 43-28 loss against the Falcons. On offense, they're 14th in yards, averaging 357.3 yards per game, and 18th in points per game with only 22.5. I say only, but yet the Bears scored less. But anyway, just by taking a look at those numbers, it's safe to say that the Bucs offense is what we would call an average unit. So let's start with the man under center, Jameis Winston. In his last game against Atlanta, he was 23 of 37. He tossed 3 touchdowns, had 0 picks. And he's been heavily leaned upon as the team has dealt with a ton of injuries at both the wide receiver and running back positions. And even taking a look at his game last season against the Bears in his rookie year, he threw for 295 yards. He went 15 of 29. He had 2 touchdowns and 1 interception against the Bears last year, which obviously the Bears defense is much better than it was a year ago. So hopefully we can limit those numbers. But Brandon, what's your take on Winston? Why does he pose a threat to the Chicago defense?
Before I get to Winston, I have a very, very quick snapshot of my own.
Sure.
We're talking about how the Bears need to win this game, and I think history may be on our side as the Bucs are 17-43 at home since 2009.
And the Bears have won the last 3 meetings.
Exactly. So history's on our side, but that's not a lock. Anyway, back to Jameis Winston. For the year, he's completed 59% of his passes. He's thrown for 2,037 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. He's been sacked 19 times, and he's fumbled 5 times this year, and he's lost 3 of them. So if the Bears can get to him, go for the ball, because he has a tendency to fumble it, chance for turnovers. That's exactly what the Bears need in order to keep momentum on their side for the game. And he was listed on the injury report with a knee injury, but he's had full practice every day this week. So I'm assuming he will be fine and ready to go come Sunday. Watching some game tape on him, the biggest threat that he poses is he's smarter than I think people realize. He knows his personnel. He knows that Mike Evans is 6'5", and he utilizes him perfectly in man-to-man situations. He's not scared to throw the 50-50 ball. But in a game against the Raiders, there was a play where Winston rolled out, and this is where we're going to show that he's still a young quarterback. He's smart, but he's still got some growing pains to figure out. But on this play against the Raiders, he rolls out, and he has Russell Shepard in a one-on-one in the end zone with the DB with his back to the quarterback, so he's going to throw it up to him, and he makes the catch for the touchdown, which is a fine read, but his next read to the left over is a wide-open tight end. A more experienced quarterback, I imagine, would take the easier pass. Still not a bad read because he knew he had his guy, or the Russell Shepard had his guy beat, but just something, growing pains maybe to improve his game a little bit, but I'll take a young, inexperienced quarterback in Jameis Winston for right now, even though he does know his personnel. And also, he can evade pressure. He's good on his feet. He's a pocket passer first, but he moves well in the pocket. He's able to step up. He's able to evade pressure. He'll scramble from time to time. He's good throwing on the run. And in the first quarter against the Raiders, they had 5 plays of 10-plus yards. Wow. That should tell me, that tells me something, because the Raiders are pretty dang good. And then lastly, when he misses the long ball, he misses it deep. So he knows that he's only going to give his guy a shot, which, again, adds to the football IQ. But the biggest threat to the Bears is his knowledge that I think people don't realize that he has. Yeah, definitely. That knowledge that can go underrated. But like he said, he's actually a pretty mobile quarterback. And Nick, with Winston being that mobile, I mean, he kind of reminds me of Cutler in that regard, not always looking for the run, but very good at eluding pressure in the pocket. But how important will it be for the Bears pass rush to kind of hit home early and often come Sunday with a mobile quarterback?
Oh, I think it's very important. I mean, if they do hit home early and often, at the beginning of the game, it's going to limit his rushing attempts that he might have later in the game. Maybe he's going to, because we did say he is a pocket passer first. So I don't think that it's definitely going to be important that they get the pass rush there, so they keep him in the pocket. You take a dimension of the game away, because just like Cutler, Winston will, if there is a lane, will take and run with it. But I think it's very important that the Bears, especially the edge rushers with Floyd and Willie Young, keep him inside the pocket, make him make that play. And he's still going through those growing pains. So the Bears picked him off last year. We have guys coming back with Eddie Goldman, so they're going to create pressure, and hopefully those growing pains, you could see him on Sunday.
No, exactly. And really, looking at Winston, I mean, one of his favorite targets, I say one of, I mean, it obviously is his go-to guy, Mike Evans. He did suffer a concussion last Thursday, but in that game, he hauled in 11 of 17 targets. This guy is, he's targeted more times than not. He also hauled in 150 yards and 2 touchdowns before he exited that game due to that concussion, but he did return to practice yesterday, and he should be a go come Sunday. And Evans also has double-digit targets in 7 straight games. So look for, Winston, to look at him, from the get-go all the way throughout the entire game. But, one thing that I noticed about Evans, he likes to use that 6'5" frame to kind of gain advantage, especially in the tight areas of the field. And he's also one of the best at just snatching that football out of the air. I mean, his 55 catches are also 25 more than the next highest total on the team. So obviously, he's the main threat that we need to focus on here for Chicago. But Brandon, what kind of chemistry have you seen between Evans and Winston, and how does the rest of that receiver core kind of pan out?
Did you read my notes?
Not a bit.
Okay, because you pretty much took my scouting report on Mike Evans. He's going to go get the 50-50 ball. He's got 55 receptions for 745 yards on the year. He leads the NFL in receiving touchdowns with 8. He did clear concussion protocol, and he will play on Sunday, I imagine. But the catch that he made when he got the concussion was a great one-handed catch on the sideline. So just because he got popped pretty good, I mean, he made a great catch doing it. So he will go get the ball, and he's not scared to. He's obviously the number 1 guy, but he does struggle from time to time to make the easy catch. And we talked about his frame being 6'5". He took a 4-yard slant route against the Falcons into a first down just because he was able to drag a guy with him for the extra 6 yards. He ran a very good route, also talking about Falcons film. He ran a good route for his first touchdown of the game. He beat Marcus Trufant back of the end zone. Looked like he was going one way, planted his foot and complete turn the other way, and he's wide open in the back of the end zone. So he is a good route runner on top of making very good catches, and you'll see him occasionally line up in the slot. Then the other guy, the other receiver, Winston's other favorite target is Adam Humphries, who has 30 receptions for 337 yards. For the year, he only has 1 touchdown. His longest reception of the year is 42 yards against the Raiders, in which they failed to wrap him up, so a lot of that came on yards after the catch. And he does have 2 rushing attempts for 13 yards, so I would say that's something to watch out for is the jet sweep. But mostly they use Adam Humphries for bubble screens. One play that really stood out to me against the Falcons is Winston will occasionally either fake the pass on a run play or he'll fake the run on a pass play like they did on this bubble screen to Adam Humphries, where he got 8 yards on it. He was able to fake the run, and the line was already pulling that way where the run was going to go if it was a run. So by the time Adam Humphries had the ball, he had the offensive line right in front of him, and it's essentially a run play from there. He got 8 yards, except there was an offensive pass interference. So that set them back, but it was a play that stood out to me because that's something I haven't necessarily seen a whole lot. Another guy is going to be Cecil Shorts. He only had 1 reception last week, so not a big threat there. But his other favorite target is the tight end Cameron Brate. He has 28 receptions for 291 yards and 4 touchdowns. And what stands out to me about him is he plays until the whistle blows. He had I'm going to call it a temporary touchdown against the Falcons. He was down by contact, but the whistle never blew, so he got up and ran in the end zone. That is something that coaches look for in every player. And just that he did that stood out to me because everyone thought the play was dead. He's a good route runner. He finds the open field. And fun fact, he is from Naperville, Illinois, and he went to Harvard. So hopefully our Harvard tight end, Ben Braunecker, can turn into what Cameron Brate is turning himself into, a very reliable tight end.
I like you bringing that whole thing full circle there to the Bears.
All right, yeah.
All right, so Nick, I mean, Brandon, kind of gave you the rundown, but let's go back to Mike Evans real quick. How should the Bears attempt to slow him down? Because he's obviously the main threat. Do you put Porter on him, or we do have Bryce Callahan coming back? That's an intriguing option.
Yeah, I think Bryce Callahan's height is going to be the disadvantage there. So even despite Tracy Porter, he's been going through knee injuries for the entire season. So he's going to come off, battling that knee injury and just go up against one of the best, receivers in the NFL. But I think the big thing here is that Tracy Porter has to do his best at disrupting the timing between Winston and Mike Evans. And that's going to happen by jamming him at the line. Because if you let him get a full head of steam downfield, just throw a jump ball. He has the height over Tracy of any guy in the secondary for the Bears to just go up and get a jump ball. None of the guys can really go get that jump ball with him. So I think what it's going to start with is Porter just really jamming him at the line of scrimmage, really disrupting the route and the timing, and hopefully just waiting for the pass rush to get there, because Mike Evans is an elite receiver and he's a big, strong, physical guy. And if it's one-on-one in the end zone, it's like the Bears with their, Cutler and Alshon Jeffrey, Mike Evans, and Jameis Winston. That's their combo to go to. So it's going to be a tough one for Tracy Porter, but he's battled through, taking on number ones all season. So I think if he disrupts the timing in the beginning of the route, it's really going to help the Bears in the long run.
No, I like it. And, Brandon did say sometimes Evans would slide inside. So when I think Evans does go inside, I think that would be the time to put Callahan on him. I would be really wary if they put LeBlanc on him. I mean, LeBlanc's been okay, but I would have really feared that matchup between Evans and LeBlanc. Brandon, you have a point?
Do you guys think it would be wise? I would say that they don't necessarily have a lack of targets, but Russell Shepard, another receiver who hasn't practiced this week, he's out with a hip injury. He didn't play last week. The lack of other receivers, would you say it's smart to just keep a safety over top of him throughout the whole game?
That's a good question. I wouldn't mind it. No one else really scares me. And then the only other person would have been, the tight end Brate. And I believe that Jarrell Freeman, given, his pass coverage this season, would just knock him down all game long. So I can definitely see how using the safety would be a very good option without losing too much. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I would definitely have Adrian Amos over the top of there because he is our most consistent safety. And like you said, Mike Evans might line up in the slot. Man, if he lines up in the slot and goes inside towards those linebackers, you better believe Trevathan and Jarrell Freeman are going to give him a pop. You guys remember the Lance Briggs pop against Megatron way back? That was great. So, hey, if he wants to do that and Jarrell Freeman's right there, you should definitely let him know that don't come inside anymore. This is where the big boys are.
I like it. I like that a lot. All right. So speaking of big boys, let's talk about that Tampa Bay offensive line, guys. They have given up 19 sacks and 66 quarterback hits. And if you want to average it out over 8 games, it's about 2.4 sacks per game and a little over 8 quarterback hits given up per game as well. Brandon, what's some of that insight that you have of that Tampa Bay offensive line?
That they're going to be weak on the left side. Kevin Pamphil did not practice this week. I assume he did not pass concussion protocol, so I doubt we will see him on Sunday. And the center, Joe Hawley, the emotional center, does a very good job of calling the plays for the offensive line. They're blocking schemes. He is limited in practice this week so far with a knee injury. So if he doesn't play, we're going to see, I imagine, Evan Smith as the center, and then we're going to have Caleb Benenoch playing left guard for the Buccaneers. But a interesting fact is Evan Smith is the backup for both Joe Hawley and Kevin Pamphil. So we'll see how Caleb Benenoch plays if he ends up having to play at left guard. I think that is a weak spot, definitely, and my bold prediction actually ties back into this.
So stay tuned for that.
Exactly. Then you're looking at left tackle Donovan Smith, who, I mean, there's holding on every play just about in football. He had one in the first quarter that set the offense back. And then Ali Marpet, the right guard, and DeMar Dotson at right tackle. Like I said, there's holding on every play essentially in the NFL. But whether or not you get caught in certain situations makes a big difference. Ali Marpet got caught on a 4th and 1. So that set them back when they had to punt the ball away. So I wouldn't necessarily say they're undisciplined, but just things to watch out for in big situations, whether or not the offensive line can hold their own.
That's pretty good stuff there. And, Nick, I mean, the Bears, like we said, should have Eddie Goldman back this week. So that's going to be huge for this, not just not just the defensive line, but the entire front seven. Plus, Pernell McPhee, he's been warming up. He had an off week, so he's going to be really rested, coming into this one. So what do you expect from not just Eddie Goldman, not just Pernell McPhee, but the entire front seven in terms of, how they fare against that offensive line?
Well, what I'm hearing is that they're pretty banged up, that offensive line, and this Bears defense is playing with an edge to them. And it's been, like that for the past 2 weeks now. And I think they're just going to come out ready to go. Pernell McPhee has been the emotional leader just with what he's been saying. He just wants to get after a quarterback and bring that nastiness. And I think with Eddie Goldman back, in the middle, and Pernell McPhee, Leonard Floyd's, he's developing in front of our eyes. And then hopefully Willie Young gets back into doing what he's been doing. I think this defensive line is going to have a field day today, or a field day on Sunday, because with just with those injuries and just what they can do and build off of momentum. Hopefully they build off of the momentum from 2 weeks now. But I think that this defense is ready to come out and really show that they are improving from week to week.
Yeah, very good points. But I mean, they have, and not only have they been improving, but they are also getting healthy. And let's not forget Danny Trevathan. I mean, that thumb injury is still kind of lingering, so a couple weeks off of that is going to be really good for him to kind of step up his game, because obviously he's been doing just fine, but he can just take that game to another level, to that Jarrell Freeman type of level with a healthy thumb. So let's switch over and let's talk about that Tampa Bay run game that comes in ranked 16th in the NFL with 108 yards per game. They might have Doug Martin back. He was the NFL's second leading rusher a year ago, but he hasn't been on the field since week 2 when he injured his hamstring. So Brandon, what should we expect from that running game? Because it's kind of hard to determine right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect a whole lot of Doug Martin. He was limited in practice today, like you said. I don't think he'll play a huge role on Sunday. They may get him in a little bit, but I doubt they'll push him too far if they don't have to. And we also won't see our good friend Jaquiz Rodgers. He did not practice this week. He was out with a foot injury against the Falcons, so we won't see him either. So then you're down to the rookie Peyton Barber, who for the year has 27 rushing attempts for 122 yards and a rushing touchdown. And against the Falcons, he had 11 rushes for 38 yards. They like him for his size over the other current healthy running back, Anton Smith. I'll just run through his stats real quick. He has 10 attempts for 47 yards, and he had 5 rushes for 25 yards against the Falcons. So half of his stats came in the last game. So I doubt that he'll have a big play in the rushing game. But back to Peyton Barber, he's disciplined. He sticks to his running assignments. Like some rookies you'll see, they try and create their own plays a little bit from time to time, but I didn't see it so much from Peyton Barber. Like I said, they like him for his size. And then Anton Smith, they use him more in the passing game. He actually was, I believe, 3rd or 4th on the team in receptions against the Falcons before they even went to Cecil Shorts. So he'll be used more in the passing game whenever you see him in the game.
Well, I have an important question for you, because I don't know off the top of my head. How does he spell Peyton? Like Manning or Walter?
Like Peyton Manning.
Dang it. I was hoping for Walter, especially with being a running back. But okay, shame on him. Shame on his parents. But all right, so Nick, Brandon just kind of broke down the running game, but the Bears' running defense has been spectacular as of late. They haven't allowed a rushing touchdown from a running back since week 3. Why have the Bears been so effective in stopping the run, especially down at the goal line?
I mean, it's because of that front. Excuse me. It's because that front seven is getting a lot better. Actually, they haven't allowed a touchdown in the first half the past 3 games. I'm pretty sure. We go back to that say, yeah. So, Chicago is ranked 10th in the league right now per rushing attempt. They're only giving up 3.9 yards a carry, so they're doing really well. And that's without key pieces like we've been saying with Eddie Goldman and Dan Trevathan not being as healthy as he could be. But they're gelling, and we've seen it each week. And Vic Fangio has his defense playing at a really good level. So, Jaquiz Rodgers, whoever goes for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think that the Bears are going to do fairly well at containing them, especially in the red zone where Tampa Bay Buccaneers have just struggled. They're ranked at the bottom half, around 30th in the league, in where they score points in the end zone. So they're just not very good. And the Bears defense, I think, they should do very well. I think the Bears are just going to do very well this game. Honestly, you guys have them. You'll see later where game picks and my bold prediction, but the defense should be able to contain this run game.
I like it. Brandon, do you have any other insight on like maybe some tendencies that either the Buccaneers tend to show on third down in the red zone? Has anything worked for them?
Nothing really too obvious that I noticed. They're obviously going to go to Mike Evans and Cameron Brate because those are the two biggest receivers in the red zone. But what stood out to me was how lack of, I guess, the rushing game has been productive. I guess I was expecting more from Peyton Barber, especially when Doug Martin's had a really good time there in Tampa. So I guess I just would have figured more from the rushing game than what I've seen so far.
Awesome. Any other final observations on that Buccaneer offense before we move forward?
Average is a very good way to describe them.
Beautiful. I like average. Average is okay. Average is
okay.
Average against this Bears defense, I'll take each and every week. All right, so let's switch over to this Buccaneer defense, which is probably the weakness of this Bucs team. The unit comes in ranked 5th worst in the league in terms of yard allowed per game, giving up almost 400 yards per game, 398.9. And they also give up the 4th most points per game at 29. So that smells good in terms of hopefully the Bears can score more than 17 points in the game. So let's face it. If the Bears are able to pick apart that Vikings defense, there is not a single excuse for them to struggle on offense come Sunday, right? Am I right?
That is correct.
No doubt about it.
All right, I just want to make sure that I wasn't the only one thinking of that, because if the Bears, without their 2 guards, were able to just manhandle that Vikings defense coming this Sunday, that Tampa Bay defense should just be a walk in the park. It really should be. But Brandon, let's go ahead and start with this Buccaneer front 7. The unit has 17 sacks in the year, led by Gerald McCoy, and he who is a very impressive 3-tech who can collapse the pocket just by himself. He has 4 sacks on the year, but what's your inside that front 7?
I was going to say manhandle may be a strong word for 2 backup guards when you're facing Gerald McCoy, because he's very good at plugging the middle and he's very good at timing the snap, and I think that's just because he's like right there looking at the ball the whole time. Just tape notes real quick. He had a very solid swim to get a sack and a forced fumble on Matt Ryan in the Falcons game. But real quick takeaway for the defense as a whole before we break them down too much. They played almost 9. I believe the whole defense played a little over 90 snaps against the Raiders in Week 8, and then played Thursday night against the Falcons and got smoked, obviously. They gave up 43 points. So by the end of the third quarter, the wheels were just falling apart. You could tell they looked tired. So some of the notes I have on here may not be 100% accurate for tape-wise, but just wanted to give that quick little asterisk.
Sure.
But on average, the defense gives up 35 points in losses, which I find very interesting. So if the Bears offense can attack them and attack them early, I see a lot of points in their future on Sunday. And on average, when the Buccaneers win, they give up on average 18 points. And they give up 37 points to the Rams, so I have some confidence in the Bears offense. They can be able to pull this one out. But to the front 7, just as a whole unit, I question whether or not they can set the edge for running games. They give up a jet sweep touchdown, and as well as a few runs that were on the inside, ended up getting bounced outside. There's no one setting an edge. I think that's huge, especially if we're going to see Jeremy Langford in his speed, because he'll be able to get out there quick and then be able to take up off the field. Or
and
Jordan
even those
Howard.
longer developing plays for Howard or on the outside that he's had a lot of success with as well.
Exactly. So setting the edge for the front 7 is a weak point. The linebackers are good and run support up the middle. But if you can get the ball down in the red zone, they're not going to sub out Gerald McCoy. So for the Bears, I would say take your time getting there, win the time possession, because once you get down in the red zone, the place where the Bears offense has struggled, they're not going to take out their top guy. And if he's gassed, they should just be able to walk right into the end zone, I would hope. So you're looking at the defensive line as Robert Ayers, the rookie Noah Spence. They'll swap those 2 out. He's impressed me so far. He's got 3 sacks on the year. He's got good hand technique. He was a good pass rusher at Eastern Kentucky. And it appears that that's going to continue to translate into the NFL. Then Gerald McCoy I already talked about. Akeem Spence. Now, here's something I took away from the notes or from the film. The Bears struggled early in the season with stunt moves. Do you guess what Gerald McCoy and Akeem Spence did against the Falcons quite a bit?
I'm going to say stunt moves.
Stunt moves. So the Bears hopefully practice that over the bye week. The offensive line just being able to recognize it, because there were a couple times Akeem Spence got in there and hit Matt Ryan a couple times. Gerald McCoy was in there just off easy stunt moves that are obviously going to throw an offensive line off. And then you're looking at William Golston and Clinton McDonald on the other end of the defensive line. And then you have Darrell Smith, who has 23 total tackles and an interception for the year at the strong linebacker. Quan Alexander, who has 72 total tackles, 2 sacks, 3 pass deflections, and an interception returned for a touchdown this year, playing very Darrell Freeman-like comparing stats.
I wish Darrell had a return for a touchdown.
That would be nice, but I was looking at total tackles. I believe they both have 72 at this point. And then you're looking at Levante David, who's the weak outside linebacker with 44 total tackles. So overall, as long as essentially you're not running it up the middle, which I don't think would be an issue anyway, Quan Alexander is the only one who really scares me as far as linebackers go, because he's been in touch with other top linebackers on how he watches tape. He's gotten really good at practicing and knowing what to look for. You'll see him in the pre-snap moving some of his guys around. He's a good tackler. He plays okay coverage, but as far as linebackers, Quan Alexander is the main guy there.
I like it. Good rundown there, Brandon. And, I like to highlight a matchup each and every week that is one to fear when it comes to the opposing front seven, which is turned into the weekly segment of who is Bobby Massey going up against this week. But I'm going to take a break from that. Instead, this week I'm going to highlight a matchup that you should definitely watch because it's going to be a really gritty matchup down in the trenches. And it's going to have to be Gerald McCoy versus Cody Whitehair. I think those two young players are going to have a dogfight from the first to the final whistle. And if you're a fan of watching those battles in the trenches, this might be one of the better ones that you're going to watch all season long because Whitehair's on the top of his game, McCoy's on the top of his, and I believe that Whitehair's going to stand tall and stand tough, but it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. But speaking of that Bears offensive line, they were able to survive injuries along that unit, but it does appear that there's a good chance, although we can't say for 100%, that the Bears are going to have both either, Kyle Long and Josh sitting back, maybe just one of them. Still something that the Bears haven't really said too much about, but both are practicing, which definitely is a good sign. But Nick, say the Bears get both of them back, or just even one. How will that impact that Bears offensive line?
Well, first I want to see if these guys are, conditioned enough. They've been out for a little bit now, and they're going and playing in hot weather with that, quick transition. These guys, Ted Larson, Eric Kush did a fantastic job against Minnesota. And if these guys are not, they have to, obviously they're Pro Bowl guards. They're going to bring it every day. But, I want to see, I wish we knew more details about how they did during practice this week, because if they're not up to par, I'm fine with Ted Larson, Eric Kush, playing this game, but those if they do have him back, they look good. That's only going to help Cody Whitehair in that one-on-one matchup with McCoy, because you have 2 Pro Bowl guards on either side. Wherever McCoy's going to go, even if it's a one-on-one matchup, there's gonna you're gonna have a guard right next to you who's going to back him up. But it's going to be interesting depending on who does play. But this offensive line is far better than they were from week 1, and I'm pretty sure they can pick up those stunts, because we saw what happened with the Texans in week 1 with the stunts that happened. Jay Cutler was running for his life. So I think that the offensive line is a lot far better than it was week 1. They're gelling, and I think they're going to be all right, depending on, it doesn't even matter who's up there blocking Jay Cutler. They're going to be all right.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, the 2 backups really did a very superb job filling into roles without, long, without sitting. And I'm comfortable if they want to give them an extra week to heal. I really am. But
same.
I was gonna ask you guys, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you with backups against the stunt maneuvers?
8.
I'm perfect. Yeah, probably an 8.
Right.
Because
I was thinking kind of along the same lines, 7, 8.
They've been fine.
Yeah, exactly.
They looked really good against Minnesota, and if they look good against Minnesota, they can look good against the Tampa Bay Buccaneer defense. Not worried one bit. I can't say 1 bit, maybe 2 bits since I said 8. All right, so Nick, you just mentioned Jay Cutler, and last year when they played the Bucs, he completed 74 of his passes, and he did toss a touchdown. But do you expect to see similar numbers this year? Tampa's secondary is allowing opposing quarterbacks to have a collective 103.5 QBR.
Yeah, no, I expect him to do better than he did last year. I mean, I have him starting in fantasy. He better do better than that. But Jay Cutler with hopefully he gets Marquise Wilson back. He's going to have Alshon Jeffrey who's healthy. Eddie Royal's coming back. That offensive line will be set for him. And obviously the best friend for a quarterback's a running game. So if they get all that going and early, man, Jay Cutler is going to light up this Bucs defense. When the Bucs defense, when they're inside the 30, the opposing offenses, they're 30th in the league in just allowing points. So once the Bears get inside the 30, you guys, they're going to score something because the Bucs cannot stop any opposing offenses.
That's actually going to be a weird. Hold on. This is going to be a fun matchup because the Bears seem like they can stop themselves more times than not.
Very true. So it's going to be the Bears. It's going to be essentially the Bears just playing against themselves once it gets inside, playing against themselves once it gets inside the 30. So, but hopefully the 20 against, the number one defense, 2 weeks ago, I would assume, and hopefully, and you'll see my bold prediction, they can score more against this weak, Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. But I think Jay Cutler is going to do better than he did last year against the Bucs.
Yeah, I just kind of want to go through the Bears, passing game a little bit more real quick. Alshon, obviously the Bears just got to keep going to him. Tampa has allowed 12 touchdown catches to wideouts and 3 100 yards games in the last 2 weeks. So big day alert there for Alshon. He only had 8 targets in last game, and we need to get those into double digits for sure. Then you have Cameron Meredith, and it seemed like we talked about it in a preview show that we were wondering where the chemistry would be between Meredith and Cutler. And it seemed like there wasn't much there, not a lot of mojo working between them last week. But, it was their first game together in a while, and there's plenty of room for that, relationship to grow. And then you have Eddie Royal, who it's still uncertain if he's going to go because of that toe injury. But if he's healthy, he's going to be a really good Cutler target because those two always seem to be on rhythm. Then you have Zach Miller, who leads the Bears in receptions. And Tampa Bay has allowed guys, tight ends, to score in the past 2 weeks. And he had 10 targets last week as well. So I think between Alshon and Zach Miller, I expect Cutler, and Miller, all three of those, they're all going to have big games. But Brandon, let's talk about the Buccaneers secondary, who stands in the way, which they are starting a familiar face back there at safety. How does that unit shape up?
A very familiar face. I'll get to that in a second. But first, they're going to start Vernon Hargreaves, a guy who the Bears, at least I considered the Bears to potentially draft him, but the Buccaneers got to him before we did, I think. Or did they go 10th? It doesn't matter. Anyway,
I'm going.
He's got 41 total tackles on the year and 5 pass deflections, no interceptions. He is a trusted guy. He did cover Julio Jones for most of the game last week. Julio Jones had 111 receiving yards on the game. So, take that as you will. One thing I did take away from him is he struggled to tackle in the open field. In the Falcons rushing game, there was a jet sweep where one of their receivers, I believe his last name's Gabriel. I can't remember his first name off the top of my head, but he took the jet sweep and he runs a 4.28, and Vernon Hargreaves just cannot tackle him. So I don't imagine the Bears running very many jet sweeps, as I don't think we've seen one this year. But that's just something to keep in mind when you're looking at Hargreaves in the open field, as he struggles to make the tackle. And then you're looking at Brent Grimes on the other side. He's got 25 total tackles, 12 pass deflections, and an interception. He likes to keep things in front of him. He's not overly aggressive at the line of scrimmage, but he is more aggressive down the field. We've seen it with Julio Jones when he covered him a handful of times. And he was fooled taking the underneath route more times than not, leaving Falcons receivers behind him, leaving the secondary kind of vulnerable, which is where we bring in a familiar face, Chris Conte, who, believe it or not, in the Falcons game left people wide open in the end zone.
No way. You're kidding,
not
right?
kidding you.
Oh, my God.
Tight end left wide open. He didn't haul in the pass, which was kind of unfortunate, but we know how that goes. He left the guy wide open.
Yeah,
we can do it again against the Bears. That would be great payback, I think. Am I alone on that?
He owes us.
Yes, he does owe us. So I would have to say hopefully he's leaving guys open again for us. Then you have Bradley McDougall, the other safety. He'll be the one deep safety back if they're going to do that, because Chris Conte likes to leave guys open. And he's more of a open field tackler, as he likes to hit guys and take himself out. But just the secondary unit as a whole, there are communication issues, like I said, with Conte leaving guys open.
Oh, man.
Man, I am nailing on that one.
You are.
But anyway, I'm kind of salty about that. Anyway.
I understand Green Bay rings a bell, but go ahead.
You could tell they were gassed. The whole secondary played all 90 snaps or whatever it was during the Raider game, and they were just tired by the third quarter. Like I said, the wheels were just falling off. Your slot guy is going to be, forgive me if I mispronounce this, Jude Ajabarama.
Should have just said Jude. No.
He didn't impress me a whole lot during the game. He had a couple open field tackles, but overall he didn't really impress me a whole lot. And they like to play coverage. They don't play a whole lot of man. But the weird thing I took away from that is if you're going to play coverage, I imagine the middle of the field is going to be covered, but it felt like watching the Falcons tape, they had guys open in the middle of the field all the time. Whether it
So
be
Zach Miller
routes.
so you're expecting Zach Miller to be open?
I'm expecting Zach Miller to be open, as well as Eddie Royal if he plays on those underneath routes. I'm not sure if that's linebackers playing shallow or if that's a secondary issue, but the middle of the field just seemed to be more open than it should be for a defense.
I like it. Nick, how do you think the Bears should, like Brandon said, they don't play a lot of man. So how can they, confuse them a little bit, especially Chris Conte, who we all know can get confused pretty easily?
Yeah, I mean, they just got to throw two guys at him, and then Conte will jump the out route, leaving the wide open guy like we all saw in the Green Bay game. Gosh, oh my goodness. I hope they torch him this week.
A little too much.
We are. But, a good matchup. If Eddie Royal is back, go after the Jude whatever the last name is guy, because I mean obviously Eddie Royal has shown that when he's in the slot he's effective, and even coming off his toe injury, I think he's going to be good to go. I've seen his interviews. He sounds like he's good to go, but they've given up 2 touchdowns back-to-back weeks or touchdowns to tight ends. Zach Miller I expect to have a big game, and I saw Hargreaves struggle against bigger receivers, and if he is matched up against even if it's Cameron Meredith or Alshon Jeffrey, they have the advantage there. So the secondary doesn't scare me at all. Chris Conte back there, the 2 corners, they were inconsistent to say the least when I was watching film on them. So I think that these receivers can have a big day, especially, if Jay Cutler has time, which he will, and if the running game's going, it's going to give him Jay Cutler a lot of time to just pick apart this Bucs defense.
Awesome. Brandon, any other final insights on that Buccaneer defense before we move forward?
Nothing I haven't already hit on. I've picked on Chris Conte enough. So,
yeah. Nick, how about you? Any other final thoughts on the Bears offense this week?
They're shaping up. It should be a pretty good day for them.
Awesome. All right, guys. So let's do my quick hit on special teams and for the Bucs. Their kicker. I'm just gonna say Roberto. He is 7 of 12. That is 58.3%, guys. And he has missed a couple extra points on the season, which makes Connor Barth, who is 8 of 11, which is 78.6%, look good, which is saying something. All right, guys. So that's all I'm going to do on special teams because I don't want to harp on it too much. But let's go around the horn and give our game predictions. And just to set the record straight, I'm in the barrel, on the bottom of the barrel at 1-7. Brandon's 2-6. Nick, you're 4-4. So do you want to go last? Do you want to go first?
I'll go first. Game prediction, you guys, and it's going to lead into my bold prediction, but the Bears are going to win 30-17.
30. Wow.
30 points. Yes.
I like it. Brandon, how about you?
I'm not going to lie. I was kind of leaning that way looking at the score when I gave you guys, like, on average, the Bucs give up 35 points in losses. I was thinking the Bears could possibly score 30 in this game, but I'm not 100% sure that I have full trust and faith in the offense to put up that many points until I see it.
So, yeah.
So I'm going to give them the win in a narrow one, 23-18.
Ooh, I like it. That's pretty close to mine. Bears fans, I know you guys were begging me to pick against them because the only 2 games that the Bears have won this season came after I picked against them. But I can't pick them. I can't do it. I can't pick them to lose when I believe they're going to win, guys. So I'm going to have to go Bears 24. Which, like we said, would be a season high, and the Bucs 20. So I'm going to have the Bears winning by 4. So hopefully they can get a win after I pick them to win the game. We'll figure that out. And our fan poll results tonight, 70% of Bears fans have the Bears winning by 6 or more. So the majority of Bears fans are expecting a big Bears victory, which, like I said in the beginning of the show,
totally fine.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said in the beginning of the show, this is a victory that the Bears need if they want to start that run to make that push to
I think
title. Go ahead.
To agree with Bears fans, if they can pull off a 6+ point victory, that really gets the ball rolling to run the table for the rest of the schedule, like Nick said, which may be possible if they put up a lot of points.
Exactly. All right. It's time, guys. It's time for those bold predictions you guys have been hinting at all night long. I'm going to go and start because I want to just build a little bit more suspense for year 2. But this week, my bold prediction is about Chris Conte. He's going to give up 2 big scores. And by big, I don't mean long. I mean, they're going to be pivotal to the game's outcome. And we're going to win for my Conte mistake, which is just going to be beautiful retribution that we all really want. But Brandon, go ahead. What's your bold prediction?
With a banged up Buccaneers offensive line, I boldly predict that in Eddie Goldman's return, he gets 2 sacks.
I like it. And, when Eddie's playing in Florida, and he's from Florida State, so he
It's like he's at home.
It's like he's at home. It's a nice little homecoming for him. All right, Nick, what's your bold prediction?
So I originally had that the Bears are going to score the most points of the season, but that's boring. So I'm going to change it to Alshon Jeffrey's going to have 2 touchdowns and over 130 yards receiving.
I like it. 2 touchdowns. That would triple his number on the year. Then he'd have 3. So that's nice. I can't believe it's week 10 anymore. He only has 1 touchdown. I still can't believe that. But all right. So Nick, you picked the Bears to win, which means we need to end our show with your few reasons why the Bears will win on Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to start with establishing the run game, because if the Bears can do that, it's just going to open up multiple aspects of the offense, from rollouts, play action with Jay Cutler, to deep shots that they can take on this week Bucs secondary. And I think it's going to, for the defense, they just have to get after Jameis Winston, and the Bears, front 7 has been doing a really good job. And they're, like we've preached throughout the entire show, they have Eddie Goldman back. Cannot wait to see what he's going to do. So they're just going to have to get after Jameis Winston. Hopefully those growing pains, like Brandon talked about earlier, are going to, fault him and maybe throw in a couple picks, because this Bears defense needs to create turnovers. But, as long as they establish the run game and get after Jameis Winston, the Bears will be just fine. And that's why I have them winning, getting their most points in the season, this game.
I like it. That's right. All 3 of us are picking the Bears to win, starting that long-desired push towards the playoffs. Hopefully the Bears can make a run at it. We will find out soon enough. It all starts Sunday. And that's all we have for you tonight. I want to thank you all for watching live or listening to the podcast. For Brandon and Nick, I am Will DeWitt. We're going to talk to you as soon as the game ends on Sunday, in which we're going to be joined by Zach Pearson of the Bear Report. So definitely stick around for that. We love having him on the show, and he's going to bring some great insight for all you guys. But hopefully Sunday we can come and celebrate another Bears win. Until then, Bear down, Chicago.